The first topic we want to get into is something I know you texted me when it was announced, was the decision to air the WWE 1999, actually it would have been the WWF 1999 Over the Edge pay-per-view. Of course, this is the pay-per-view in Kansas City, Missouri, the Kemper Arena, in which Owen Hart lost his life, unfortunately, tragically. And I really thought this would be a pay-per-view that would never see the light again. I didn't think it would need to see the light again. I think back to that pay-per-view. I obviously saw it live. The emotion after Owen had passed away, wrestlers openly crying. I remember Deborah really breaking down in tears. To me, as professional as wrestlers were to get through that show, it was a very hard show to watch after you know what happened. I mean, a real-life situation, a guy dies, and here we're talking about, worked matches to finish a show. Frank, I was very surprised to see WWE announce that the 1999 Over the Edge pay-per-view was coming back. Very controversial, and I don't like this decision at all.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I remember that night, like it was yesterday, and I've seen plenty of videos on YouTube since then, and every time I watch it, it just gives this horrible feeling. And anytime WWE's will release anything on DVD concerning the subject, it's just a bad feeling. If they want to play anything of Owen Hart's, as far as any of his matches go, I have a problem with that. This pay-per-view to me, I know it's part of WWE history, and maybe there's some fans out there who have never seen it and want to see it, but I don't think it ever should have, it should be seen ever again. I think that this is a very, very bad decision to put this on. This is even worse than them putting on Chris Benoit matches. This is something that, this happened in the public view, in the public eye. And it's just, I think it's disrespectful to Owen Hart's widow, it's disrespectful to his children, and I don't care how heavily edited this show will be on the network. It doesn't erase the fact that the crowd in Kansas City, Missouri that night saw this incident go down. The announcers saw it happen. The wrestlers had to go out there and continue to perform under this situation, and you can clearly see there's blood spots in the ring that were from Owen Hart. I mean, how are they going to get rid of that? So I think it's just a wrong move, and I think there's going to be some bad PR for WWE for making this decision.
I just don't understand the point of this. The WWE library is very extensive. I believe they announced initially 400 pay-per-views between WWF, WWE, WCW, and ECW will be made available on the network. Why even go back to this particular pay-per-view? I mean, they have so many different pay-per-views available. I just don't understand why you would go back to this. This is, I mean, the annals of history, Frank. This is like one of the saddest days I can remember. Probably the worst day I can remember. I mean, the Benoit tragedy was bad, but the Owen Hart situation was that the guy died in the ring.
Exactly.
And I can remember, Vince McMahon doing that press conference afterwards saying, I don't know what happened. And then, of course, it was the blame game. Whose fault was it? Was it the arena's fault? Was it the stunt coordinator's fault? Was it the WWF's fault? We've heard, why was Vince even using Owen Hart as a blue blazer at that time? And you go down that road. Vince Russo's been blamed for a lot of it. I mean, you can go back to the blame game. But to me, that's just a black eye in WWF history, WWE history now. And to me, it's unnecessary. As I said, your library is so extensive. Why even go back to that date? And I was surprised too, Frank, when it was announced, people were saying, I want to see the unedited version of the pay-per-view. And I mean, why would you want to go through that? It hurts me even to talk about it now. I mean, I was such a huge Owen Hart fan, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and to go through it, I mean, that's not a wrestling pay-per-view you would enjoy, even if you've never seen it. I mean, I saw it live, and I didn't enjoy it because I knew what was happening. And I remember, Jim Ross coming on about 9:30 saying that we've lost Owen. Owen had passed away. And then, to me, the show didn't mean anything after that. I really don't remember. I remember Steve Austin was in the main event. I think Undertaker was in the main event, but I honestly couldn't tell you who else was on the show after that match because the only thing going through my mind was Owen Hart, and who could possibly care about work WWE matches? So I guess I just don't understand, Frank, with the history and the volume of pay-per-views WWE have, why would they even show this pay-per-view again?
Yeah, I don't know. And as far as people out there that want to see the unedited version of this, I don't know what the hell is wrong with these people.
Shame on you. That's sickening. That's disgusting.
I don't get it. I mean, what are you trying to relive? I thought the network was supposed to give you a good feeling of nostalgia. I don't get a good feeling out of, knowing that a pay-per-view in which, one of my favorite wrestlers died on is going to be available, and, it's just a total, buzz killer. It just really is. It's like, the difference between the situation is that Chris Benoit murdered his wife and murdered his son and then killed himself. But he did that in his house. He did that in his home. He didn't do it in the public view. It didn't happen on pay-per-view. So that's the difference between the two situations. But on the other hand, there are people out there that, if WWE says every pay-per-view is going to be available, then I guess they're just keeping their word that they're going to put in the pay-per-view they have in the library on that on the network. I guess that's what they're doing.
I understand that, but I mean, they could put the asterisk to say, and this was a different pay-per-view. I mean, this is not a pay-per-view you want to watch because of the emotion. I mean, you're seeing wrestlers break down and cry. You see valets crying. Guys are going. I mean, the guys worked hard as best they could, and then. So I remember that, the night after that was, Raw is Owen, and then we had everybody doing the tribute matches and people doing the interviews where they were telling their favorite Owen Hart stories. And, of course, Owen Hart was a prankster, so everybody was, Mick Foley and JBL and Triple H, and everybody was going through their favorite Owen Hart moments. And then I thought, are they going to show the Raw is Owen after that then? Because, I mean, that was the next night, and everybody was still full of emotion. People wanted to tune in to see, what kind of tribute they would do. I just don't understand the mentality of showing a pay-per-view where there's no real enjoyment in watching it, even from a wrestling perspective. Because it happens early in the show. I believe he was scheduled to wrestle the Godfather.
Right.
And of course the match never happened. They cut away. I remember, there was a long pause in the action as they were tending to Owen. And then of course the question was, watching it live, was, is this real? Is this part of the show? What's going on here? We don't exactly know. And then later in the show, they updated you by saying that Owen had passed away. And then, of course, I remember getting phone calls, people saying, "Is this true? Is this an angle? What's going on here?" And I thought, WWE's done a lot of WWF at that time had done a lot of strange things, a lot of strange storylines, but I can't really fathom that they would fake a death or do a death story where somebody had not actually died that they were going to portray had died on television. And I was telling everybody, I think this is real. I don't believe this is a work. And it was just so sad, Frank, because, it's 9:30. We got another hour and a half. You got the main event. The reason you order the show usually is the main event. That's coming up. I didn't care about that. And I'm just getting phone calls and emails, people saying, what's going on here? And then to think that they're going to go back to that day and relive that on the network. Like you said, positive spin, the new network. We've got all this content, all this great history of wrestling. And then we're going back to, like I said, Frank, probably the saddest day in wrestling history to go down that road again. I just don't understand, why would you do that?
I don't know either. And I would be really, at this point, kind of wanting to know what Bret Hart thinks about that.
And the Hart family in general, because, Smith Hart is very vocal on, Twitter and Facebook. I'd be very curious to see what the Hart family in general. And obviously the Hart family is split. Some of them support Martha. Some of them support WWF. I think some of them wanted to work for WWF at that time, unfortunately, but that's the reality. But I would be very interested to see Diana Hart's very vocal sometimes on Twitter, Facebook. I'd be very curious to see what the Hart family thinks of them bringing back this pay-per-view. You got Davey Boy Smith's son is wrestling. We got Natalia out there. I'd be very curious to see what the Harts think of this. I can't imagine they would support this decision.
No, I can't either. And I think it doesn't matter how much, forgiveness has gone down with Bret. I can't believe Bret would actually be, condoning WWE of putting this pay-per-view, airing this pay-per-view and basically reliving this tragedy all over again. It doesn't matter how they edit it or whatever they do. You know it happened. You go back in the history books and know that this event occurred. It will never be erased. Like you can edit it all you want, but we know what happened. If you want to see the raw footage, you just go on YouTube, type in Over the Edge. I always cringe every time WWE did that pay-per-view Over the Limit, because that's just basically the same thing as Over the Edge.
It reminds you of that same connotation to it.
Exactly.
The guy fell to his death in the ring. The sickest thing, I think, Frank, is people that want to see it unedited. I think two bad things. One is they're going to bring it back and show it again, and number two, the fans that want to see it unedited. Because what do you get out of watching unedited? Nothing.
I don't get it.
That's I find that hard to. I find both hard to believe. One is that they're going to show it again, and number two is that fans would want to go through the unedited version of probably the most tragic pay-per-view we've ever had. In fact, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, people just really, have too much time on their hands, and there's just a lot of sick people in the world, and that's just how I look at that. But there's a lot of sick people. Nobody cares about anybody anymore, and this type of behavior proves it.
Let's transition away from that. We've covered that topic pretty well. You can, of course, as always, leave us your comments. What do you think about WWE bringing back the Over the Edge pay-per-view 1999? I'm at Gerweck on Twitter, at GERWECK. You can find me on Facebook. And you can also email me at any time. If you want to even get a shout-out on the show, email me at betweentheropes@hotmail.com.